Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to the AR tutorial where we create a simple game and it just looks like that now. So we have a little bit of art going on. It's pretty much the same exact thing and whoop, I actually forgot to put a floor collider on that. Or I mean a mesh collider, box collider would do the job. So and also forgot to put a box collider on these as well. Okay, that should actually be fixed. So my bad about that. Our game actually looks like that now. And we can still play the same. As you can tell, we're going to be spawning the gun, and then I'm over here and I'm just going to be shooting this. However, I don't have like 12 hands, which I can't do right now unless I press on my mouse at the same time. Whoops, I actually closed this. Alright, you get the picture. Basically, the game hasn't really changed, but we've created some art in Blender. And that's pretty much what we are going to be doing today, guys. Alright guys, so without further ado, let's actually get started. Alright, so last time we had this nice gameplay going on. Today we are going to start adding some more art and also some game flow to this. So we're going to be really building the meat of that game. And I will be starting on Blender actually. We're going to be making a quick model, really fast model. And it's going to be a cube, basically. But I just want to modify the UV a little bit so we can actually use it in a different manner. And you'll see why actually. So let me just delete pretty much everything in this scene. Alright, so now with my cube selected and nothing else, I've renamed it to floor, and I'm going to scale it up just a little bit, so let's go with something more likely to happen in the game. So maybe a floor that is 10 meter by 10 meter, like this, and then I will take the bottom face by going to edit mode, and then choosing the faces selection, take this and just put that bottom face to say -25, and then I'll actually remove it because we don't see that face in our game. We're never actually going to see beneath that. So something of the sort is probably going to work. So I will go ahead and just start doing the UV a little bit. So UVs are really simple. What we're going to be doing here is we are going to create a new view, just like this, and we are going to swap that view to an actual UV editor. So UV image editor. So at this point, I'll be selecting each and every single faces over here, the side faces, and I'll be hitting U, and then unwrap, U, unwrap, U, unwrap, oops, and finally another one. And now this way, all the side faces like that, they share the actual same texture, which is exactly what we want. And I actually feel like leaving it there. We're going to be using a gradient for that, something really sweet looking. And now as for the bigger one, here it is. We are going to say U unwrap and then just scale it up a little bit. We're going to be modifying that. I'm assuming that this texture is going to be the only texture of our game. So I want to be having space for all the other things we're going to need, which is really not a lot of things to be honest. So we are going to go ahead and just scale this down a little bit and leave some places for the other things we need. So I've chosen my face. Now I'm going to hit S to scale it up. Scale it down. Let's say it's gonna be right about this big. We can go with this actual size here, and I'm gonna be more precise than that, so I'll just keep the perfect values. The way I'll do this is I'll grab every single pixel one by one and I'll actually just input them manually. So I'll just click and make sure it's only this one, you're not selecting the rest. And you're going to be putting that on 256 by 256. Now if we go down there, we're going to do the same exact thing for that. However, we're going to be splitting it because we need some space at the end here. We're going to be splitting this in two. So we could be doing 256 divided by 2, which is 128. So 256 in X and 128 in Y. Same thing here, 128 in X. And I think it's 256 in Y, and then we just keep doing like that, so 128 and then 128, which is exactly the center. This is pretty much our UV now, so we basically end up with something like this, where all our four faces, the side faces, they're actually stacked, and that's perfectly fine because we're not using a light map, and also the top face is over here, and we can just extract it on its own. Now the next thing I want to do is actually just start saving this, so I'll hit Ctrl S, and then you get to save somewhere. I saved inside of my project. As you can tell, it is right here. And you're not actually allowed to put that here, so Blender could not convert the file. So if you're going to be saving somewhere, don't do like I just did. Go ahead and just save somewhere else outside of your asset folder. So I'll be saving one step before my asset folder, say around here, and I will create a new folder. And I'll actually do that in the Windows Explorer because I'm still new to that interface. So let's actually have a look at this. Here it is, that's my floor. I'm going to right click, create a new model folder, and I'll just put the actual floor in there. Right, so that's the Blender file, but that's not what we're allowed to use in the engine. In the engine, we need a FBX, so we're going to be going over here under File, doing Export, and we're exporting as an FBX. Now this time we can actually go inside, actually we have to go inside of the asset folder, then artwork, and I'll just export this as floor.fbx. And if I just delete these two things, here it is. It is right there. Alright, so now that your mesh is actually inside of Unity, we're going to be replacing the old floor we have, which is about here, so at 100 in Z. And then we might want to scale up this thing a little bit, but beforehand, let's just bump it down to say -10, like the other one, and then we'll scale it up like this. So of course you're ending up with a lot of weird scaling values. You can clean your mesh inside of Blender if you wish, but I still don't know how to do that. Unfortunately, I'm just going to deal with that. That's not a big deal. So here it is, that's our new mesh. And now what we're going to be doing from here is, I think we're going to be removing this guy. We're going to be removing this other level we've had before, and we're going to start creating a new one. Now, the blocks I want to be using are custom blocks that I should be making inside of Blender as well. So that's exactly what I will be doing in a moment. And now I'm going to go back inside of Blender and actually create a new file. The way I'm going to do this is actually do a save as, and I will save as something else. So maybe something like block.blender. Now once this is saved, I'm actually going to start playing with the scales a little bit. So I'll go for something like 1, 1, and then a height of 5. So maybe something of the sort. And I'll just be moving this upward like so, and maybe I do get to center my pivot point as well, so maybe Control C or Shift C, I think. Then you're going to be putting the pivot point down there by going under Edit, Set Origin, and then you're going to be setting the origin to the 3D cursor, which is going to reset position of this. Alright, so that's pretty much all we need for a block. So we're going to be doing the UV really quick, so the UV are pretty much the same exact thing. However, we do have a face at the bottom here that we need to fill, so let's go back to Edit mode and actually just fill that face. So select your edges, and you're going to hit F. This way we now have a face. Alright, so back to the actual UVs. Now, it's pretty much using the same one as the last object we've made, of course, but this time we're going to be just moving this around a little bit. So first, we actually need a UV for this face, so we'll be hitting U and do a unwrap for this. We're also going to unwrap the one at the top, so it's actually matching the other one. So click this, unwrap, and then you get to choose both of these objects at the very same time. You go back on this view, scale down the UV, and now if you remember correctly, we took just a fourth of this UV space before. So what we can do now is actually take this whole thing here for a square. Or actually, you know what, even better than that, we can be putting it down here. That would make a lot more sense. So just like we did last time, we're going to be moving the UVs one by one. So I will go down here and actually just take my UV selection, hit B, so I can box select these two UVs at the same time, and then we're going to be moving them to 128, 128. B again, select these. This is also 128, but 0 on the y-axis, and I still have the other selection, so watch out for that. Let's go ahead and just grab these. So 128 and 0. We shall proceed over here. That's 256, 256, or sorry, 256 and then 0. And finally these two guys up here. 256, 128. And now if you remember correctly, you have the blocks over here, you have the floor over here, and you have the side of the blocks And I'll select the whole object by pressing A, and we'll actually just grab all of these guys on this side. If I can drop my selection, drop all of these, actually just grab all of these and then move them towards this space. And of course we can take more space with this because it's a little bit different than the other one. It's not as long, so we might as well just increment the x-axis a little bit. Only with one side, so maybe just all of these. Then just bump up the x-axis, maybe like that, so we have more definition. Let's also make sure that they're all inside of the UV space, so I'll just be selecting these, just cranking this a little bit down, or you know what, let's actually snap it directly on the grid, like so. And this would be 0. Alright. Since we pretty much just snapped this, let's also make sure we snap this one. So I will be taking all of these pixels on the left, and I'll be putting them at, say, 64. And now, same thing for that side, however, we're going to be putting that to 128. Alright. So we should be pretty much good to go with all the 3D models. Next thing is going to be like doing really simple texture, and then we can go ahead and just start creating levels and more game flow, of course. So we're going to be going under File, Save As. You're going to save that as the block, of course. You don't want to override the floor, and then after that you can do File and Export as an FBX, and you're going to be exporting block.fbx. Alright, so all the Blender work should actually be done. Let's use one of these blocks. Let's put it actually like on top of it, and see if the scaling makes sense. If it doesn't, we can simply scale it up. Doesn't really matter in this case. And here we go. Alright. Now obviously on this screen, on this phone screen, it would look a little bit bigger, but I still think that it's not really that big, so I'll just be putting everything even. So we have 100 here, 100 here, and 40 here. I'm just doing 8 times 2 basically. And that would be one of my cube. Alright. Fair enough. Now I will go ahead and just jump into Photoshop, and this is going to be really quick, guys. This is not, I don't want to be spending like ages on this. This is going to be the UI Atlas, and it's going to be fairly simple. So we remember that you had the right side, which is basically just split by the floor upper right, and then the sides of the block lower right. So I'll do it a new guide at 50% vertical, and also a new guide at 50% horizontal, and then I'll put the black color as a background, or yeah, I'll actually be putting the black color as background, and then we're gonna start making our texture. So the first one is actually going to be the floor. And the floor, I'm going to be using all of this space. Use a gradient tool. And then I'll be choosing really, like this could actually do the job just fine. So you have a gradient, and this one is radial. So I'll just click on radial up here. And I'll just start from the center. Hopefully this is the center. And I'll just drag it towards this side. And then I'll just merge everything at this point. And put that back on multiply. Scale it up, and that's going to be my awesome floor. Alright, so here it is. I'm also going to cut the excess right here, and there we go. So to have a look at this in the game, we're just going to be putting it out there right now. I'm going to press save. We are going to save, of course, at the same very place where we save the models. So if I just go in my folder, AR Shooter, then I go under, we have the model over here. We could do the PSD folder here as well, why not? And this is the UI Atlas.psd. Now if everything went fine when we did the UV on blenders, then it should actually have this as a floor. Let me quickly go save that. I'm actually doing a save as right now. I'm going to be saving this as a PNG under the assets folder, then artwork, UI Atlas.png. We are now back in the game, and we just need to go here, put that as a 2D sprite and UI. We're going to be doing a multiple here. Or actually, we don't have to do a multiple, I just remember. Let's just leave it on a normal texture. We did our UV. I'm so used to actually doing sprites now. I forgot that this is actually part of the UV. So we need a new material for this. We can be using this one. That's the one that came in with Blender, so let's just go ahead and use it. The albedo is going to be floor. I mean UI Atlas. And as you can tell, it fits this side perfectly fine. Now, for some reason, there's some kind of mess with the alpha. And I think that's because we don't have any alpha in here. If we do transparent, it still does that. So we're gonna have to find a way to actually just fix that before the end of this video. But right now, let's keep going with what we have. We're gonna be making more texture. Now, as far as the blocks goes, the top of the block over here, we're gonna go with something really simple. So I was thinking about let me just turn that off for a second, see what that gives us in the game. Maybe it even looks better without that. Actually, you know what? It probably do look better without that asset artwork. UI Atlas, we're gonna replace that. And eventually it's gonna be updating. Here it is. Okay, so if we put a transparent on that, material, it could actually look cool. Alright, so in order to actually see this in its full glory, I guess, we're gonna have to do the rest of these. Alright, well, it feels like that if I do want to have some transparency on this, which I do in my personal case, but you might not want to, I have to go with the vertex lit with Z here and just put that here, which is going to force me to have some lighting in the game, and I don't really mind. And here it is. Alright, so obviously there's something missing down there, and that is the last and final piece. The actual last UV thing here. So I'll just create a new layer, take the color I've had over here, the very, very far side. Now I have this color in my color tool. I'll go under gradient, and now I have this gradient up here. So that's the one by default. It gives you the actual color you had and some alpha next to it. So I'll just be grabbing all of this side like this, and now as you can tell my selection here, and I'll just go like this. I'll just, let me use this one. I will just start from, say, about there and just scroll it all the way down. This way it actually looks like some kind of floating island without really being a floating island. I don't know if you can see the effect I'm actually seeing right now in my head. Probably not, because you're not in my head, but let me just save that and actually show you what I'm talking about. Go back here, assets, artwork, UI Atlas, you know, the usual drill. Wait a little bit, it's now saved, we enter in a game back, and we almost achieved something. Well, as you can tell, we do see something cool looking here. And it does look a little bit in the camera. However, this is messing me up a little bit, the camera, and not the camera, but the lighting. And it's not shooting the right direction. But you get a picture, our stage is there now, and we can start shooting at it as soon as we have some better way to actually control both the camera and the gun. And of course, the gun needs to be a little bit different to the texture of it. I didn't really think about that before, but we can actually create a texture for the gun too, and we can fit it in the little space we didn't use. So let me quickly turn that off, and we're going to be starting to tackle the logic. And as far as the gun goes, I'll use a block. Alright, let's quickly change that for a block, because why not? Over here is the block. We can swap it like this, put it right about there so it matches. And I'll actually just put it on top of my card this time, so it's not getting cut by half of the card. Then I can actually swap that, so the cube we've had before, that's now the gun. Oops. And I'll just put the component we've had here, put it in here, and also put the bullet span under a gun. And we can lift it up a little bit as well, like so. Remove this totally, we don't need it anymore. And we don't need a collider that wasn't that beforehand. And there's a bug with our game right now. If we just have our gun going on here, and we just put it like forward like that, and we actually just push this guy. We used to be able to do that because of the collider, but now we can't anymore. But it was possible to actually just push him. As you can tell, I'm going through right now. So if this has a collider on it, you can actually push it. And now we're gonna have to code some logic so it doesn't go past the point, because you know that's kind of cheating if you just go up here and then you shoot. Alright, so we're gonna have to fix that eventually, but right now we're gonna be starting to just detect if the actual blocks they fell or not. And let's actually change the shader. I really do not like that shader at all. I'll be using unlit transparent, which is a little bit hardcore, but hey, you gotta do what you gotta do. Alright guys, so at this point we need to start doing a little bit of logic, but before we end this video and actually go on to create the whole game manager around that, we are going to create a single script, but we're not really going to do anything in it, just lay it down. So on a block, like this block I have right here, I'm going to create a script called block. And I will simply leave it here. I won't even open it. That will be for later on. And I'll just start positioning my block, say, in the very center of this thing. So I'll just go, say, in this angle as is a metric, and I'll just be putting it in the center like that. Maybe even scale it up a little bit. We can play with the scale because the pivot point is at the very bottom of this. And it doesn't actually go through the floor. At least more than it was in the first place. So I'll just leave my block like that. This is going to be level 1. And now to save the prefab, I will go under game object, create empty. This is going to be level 1. Take my block, put it beneath that as a children. Oh, by the way, before that, before making this a children, make sure you take your level 1 and just reset its position to 0, 0, 0, which is, you know, in the center of the world over there. Now we're going to be taking that block, putting it as a children, and you are going to drag and drop this inside of the prefab folder. Might as well create a new folder for that as well. So prefab, level prefab, drag and drop level 1, and here it is. Now I'm going to just take this block, move it slightly towards the left side, and duplicate it with a Ctrl+C, create another block, and that's, you guessed it, level 2. We can actually create another block up here that we'll be putting as a bridge in between them. If I can get the right angle. So something like that. Oh, and also forgot the rigid body, my bad. Yeah, so every single of these blocks, they need to have a rigid body so they can actually work with our game. I'll go ahead and just right click on it. Not right click, sorry, go and add component, add a rigid body, same thing for these two guys, so I'll just select them both at the same time, rigid body, and then I'm going to drag and drop this inside of the level prefab. Go back to the level prefab 1, but only in the project folder, go on the block, add the rigid body, and here we go. And let's quickly make a third level, then we can call it a day. So I'll be keeping only one. And say for the level 3 we're gonna go with something a little bit more difficult, so something of the sort. I'm using V to snap the vertex like so, just something like that. Alright, that could actually work. Drag and drop this, that is going to be level 3, and here we go. So we have 3 levels right here. In the next episode, we're going to start and actually spawn that using code and actually keep track of which one we thrown off. So I hope you guys enjoy. I hope you'd like this. If you did, please leave me a like. Really appreciate that. It helps out a ton. Also, check out the Patreon page if you wish to support me directly as a person and with the channel and all that kind of good stuff. Other than that, please leave a comment in the description below if you have any problem or any just comments in general. And I will see you guys in the next episode.